For those who seek adventure, this is the Buffalo Roamer Podcast, sharing the people, places, and moments that make a life on the loose worth living.
The thing that's going to stick out to you most is when they open up that plane door. The cold is something like you've never felt.
The jungle's so thick, even if you had a machete, you couldn't get through it.
There's a huge blonde grizzly bear. And when it saw us, this thing put its head down, stomped on the ground, and hissed like an alligator.
I just crossed this brutal stretch of desert, and I was really suffering.
I'm your host, Will Collins. I'm an adventurer, outdoorsman, and roamer of wild places. I've backpacked the Brooks Range, rafted the Grand Canyon, and have canoed from source to sea, both the Mississippi and Yukon rivers. I live for adventure, travel, fresh air, and diving into the unknown. And now, I hope to share my passion with you on the Buffalo Roamer Podcast. Here we go, episode 93. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, make sure you are subscribed. That way you get the latest episodes downloaded automatically and get to stay in the know with what's going on here at Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. Big thank you to SREgear.com, family-owned and operated outdoor gear shop in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. Big thank you to SodaPeakOutfitters.com. Experience true Wyoming wilderness with the guides at Soda Peak Outfitters in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem in Wyoming there. And big thank you to Fishell Paddles, makers of fine handcrafted wooden canoe paddles. I do have discount codes associated with all of those fine companies, and especially as we are chatting with Greg Fishell today of Fishell Paddles on episode 93. If you fancy getting yourself a Fishell paddle, you can use the code WILL to get a discount on that paddle, and make sure you tell Greg that you listen to his podcast. So without further ado, episode 93 is with Greg Fishell, again, owner and operator of Fishell Paddles at FishellPaddles.com. We talk about paddle making, we talk about canoeing, we talk about camping, the Grand Canyon, slacklining. We get into all of it here on this episode. So without further ado, Greg Fishell on episode 93 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. This one has been long overdue. Greg, how you doing?
I'm good, Will. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to chatting, paddling, canoeing, and paddles, outdoor adventure, all kinds of stuff. So where are you at right now? I assume you're at your place in Arizona, right?
I am, yes. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona. Probably the most pretty part of Arizona possible, in my opinion, at least. It's not hot Phoenix. We're at 7,000 feet over here. So we even get snow. I think this year our local mountain got 261 inches of snow, and we're still skiing into June. So pretty wild to be skiing in Arizona.
Yeah, that's awesome. In June, nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great, man. Well, got a lot to talk to, but you and I met each other. We'll get into our happenstance and how we, not really happenstance, but how we got into meeting each other. But you're a paddle maker, among many things. And you have your company, Fishell Paddles, where you make beautiful wooden canoe paddles. Before I even get into any of that, tell me how you got into paddling and canoeing and the outdoors.
That's a great question. Well, I started attending a summer camp in 2001. I would have been 7 years old. Very similar to you, actually. But my camp was up in central or southern Ontario. I was born and raised in Toronto, so, got that Canadian blood in me. And it's a lot of people say, hockey, Canada, they go hand in hand. Well, canoeing is definitely more of our heritage, I would say, but that's up for argument for sure. So I actually went on my first canoe trip when I was like 18 months old. My parents took me out. I don't remember any of it. There's just one great picture of me lying on my mom while she's laying in a hammock, beautiful lake in the background and whatnot. So I've pretty much been raised in a canoe for lack of better terms. But I did go to a summer camp for many years, and then I found an old paddle blank lying in my grandfather's basement. And for those who don't know, a paddle blank is basically a lunk of wood that's been roughly carved into a paddle, but it's not really paddleable. It kind of would paddle like a 2x4. So I asked my grandfather, I was like, can I give it a go, and see how it goes? He said, absolutely. So I was 14 at the time with that. So that's kind of how I got into paddle making. But, as for my paddling background, yeah, every year, 2 week summer camp overnight, we would do overnight canoe trips on those 2 weeks. And then when you get into about the teenage years, you go into a 4 week program or even longer. Longer trips, I think the longest trip I did was 14 days. Like 6 of those days were a backpacking hike. And then the other 6 of those days, 8 of those days is a canoe trip. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into paddling. And like I said, it's just in my blood at this point.
Love it, man. I love it. A lot of kids have gotten turned on to canoeing in the outdoors and paddling from those canoe camps in the north. That's for sure. How long have you been doing Fishell paddles? And I guess I'll explain how we met a little bit now before I even get into that. So I was looking for a canoe paddle when I first came across your website, Fishell Paddles. I knew the shape of the canoe or the paddle that I was looking for in my head. I'd seen maybe one or two before. One of my buddies had one that was a similar shape that he got at like a thrift shop randomly, and he revarnished it and made it look real, sanded it and made it look real nice. And ever since then, I was like fascinated by the shape of that paddle, which is basically the real long, skinny blade, and basically that really long, skinny blade.
Yeah.
And so I'd been searching for different paddles, and there's not many people who make paddles like that. There's a few, but not many. And I came across your website. And to be fair, my now wife, then probably girlfriend, had bought me a paddle from a different company, one of the big box boys, and
yes, I remember this.
A nice one. And I was like, I really like this. Thank you. Great gift, but I'm going to return it and get a paddle that I'd really like. And so through all the searching, I found Fishell paddles, and the shape of your paddles, at least the classic ones that you make, are just beautiful, perfect. They're functional, and you can fill in on all the correct stuff. But from my perspective, it's somebody explained it to me as the surface area of the paddle is similar to your classic like otter tail, or even like the square, just classic blade. But because it's longer and skinnier, there's less strain. You can really get under the boat and kind of feel the play of the water, because you can get a little bit deeper, and it's just a unique style. So I fell in love with it. I called you up, and we had one handmade, as all of them are. And then from there, the relationship just kind of ran. Is that fair?
That's really well said, Will. Yeah. Yeah. I really love this story because you came to me first. I didn't go searching for a sponsor. I didn't do any of that, and I just loved that side of it. And when you and I had that phone call before you had placed the order, just the fact that you were looking for that long, skinny blade went, oh, okay, we got to get you with a Ray special for sure. And at that moment, I knew, I was like, okay, this guy, we got to have further chats with him, because you knew the physics. Like, you understood what we're coming from and where we're coming from with our product, and why we've modernized it to what it is now. So for those who don't know, it's all of my shapes I make are considered otter tails. They've just been modified and modernized to be more efficient depending on what you're looking for. So, for example, Will got a 64-inch Ray special. He's 6 foot tall, so 64 fit him perfectly in cherry wood, beautiful cherry wood. Oh, speaking of, actually, sorry if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
I had Will ship his paddle back to me because I wanted to do a nice fresh refinish on it as a thank you all the sponsorship stuff and everything. And it is in the mail on its way back to him. And I can't wait for you to see the new used product.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it too. It's been it's held up well, man. It's been a great everyday paddle for me, and I've definitely used it and abused it, which in my mind that's what a paddle's for. They're tools, not jewels in my mind. They could be both.
Absolutely.
But,
Absolutely. Just do your annual maintenance. That's all I ask.
okay, I will. I will. But so tell me a little bit about the background of how long have you been making paddles? I mean, you said you made your first one since you were 14.
Yeah.
And I guess the background of like the gentleman you bought the company from, and kind of how
Yes.
all of that came to be, and how long you've been doing it, and the story
Yeah.
of the shape of the paddle, and the uniqueness of it, and kind of that background.
Sure. Yeah. It's a bit of a long story, so I won't drag it out too long. But basically, at 14, I made my first paddle. 16, I made my second, and by 18, I was 18. I had my first order just myself. I was still working at the summer camp at the time, and it was another staff member at the camp, and she just was like, I need a paddle, and I could either buy this guy's or I could buy yours, and I'll support you because you're kind of small. And so so I did that, and that was fun. And I still have had so much to learn then. It was crazy, like how far I've come. But at 19 years old, so in 2014, that is when Ray Kettlewell, he's the legend for the record, not me. Ray retired. He announced retirement. His style, his shapes, like he came up with pretty much every shape that we offer on our website. There's only one that I've kind of modernized myself and tweaked. That's mine. But everything else are his designs. Other than the obvious like standard otter tail shape, which is a pretty standard thing across the industry. But Ray is a legend, even amongst U.S. paddlers. He was super well known. His logos are super, super well known as well. It's a big kind of bat-looking symbol, almost like the bat symbol, literally, which kind of sounds funny. Funny enough, it actually is a Canadian goose coming in for a landing. That is what his logo is by definition. However, it's not.
And so he designed these specific type of paddles that you are still carrying on today.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And like I said, other than the standard otter tail shape, but yeah, he did design those, and it's what made him very well known. He has an engineering background, so his kind of propeller-like blades were the thing that really made him famous. So he came out with the Ray Special in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, somewhere around there. My dad got one of the first ones when he was working at the summer camp that I used to work at. I still have that paddle to this day. I think he bought it in 81. Yeah, it's like I said, Ray is the legend for sure. So when he announced retirement in 2014, I called my dad. I just said, this is like, I've been making my own paddles. I've made 4 at this point. It's not many compared to what he does, but
And so
I was like,
had, not to interject here, but he had like a cult following, if you will, of people who, and still does to an extent, right?
absolutely. Yeah. If you can get your hands on a Ray with anything with his logo, doesn't matter what shape, people will pay good money for it. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny though. It's you know, we make the same product. The only difference is the logo and who made it, right? So it's a nostalgia thing, right? So, and I love it. I think it's great. It's a wonderful thing to be carrying on for sure. But yeah. To continue my history here, Ray, yeah, announced retirement. Anyway, so my dad and my family, the whole Fishell family, had a connection with Ray over the years because of my dad and my uncles going to the same summer camp I did. And Ray would literally drive up to the camp with a pickup truck and sell paddles out of the back. Can't really do that today, but back then they didn't really bat an eye at it. So, so they built that relationship over many years, and then it even turned into a relationship where Ray needed an architect to sign off on his custom built house he was doing, and he called my grandfather. So he helped them out there with that stuff. So there was a background with the family and with Ray. So when I had met Ray, that was when I was kind of just, putzing around with my own woodworking, and I showed him one of my paddles, and after the second time I showed it, he gave me a thumbs up, which to me was a big deal. To most people, I'm sure it's like kind of like, oh, whatever. But the guy's a pretty quiet guy. He doesn't talk too much, but a thumbs up was a big deal. That he approved of the product, so which is sweet because I was trying to mimic his stuff, right? It's like he's the legend, so of course.
And so,
sorry.
How long ago was that, and how long have you been running Fishell paddles?
This is our 10th year, so 2014. Yeah,
that's
pretty
great.
Crazy. Yeah. I would have. I wish I had time right now to be planning some big 10-year thing and getting some merch out there and all that. But I am neck deep in paddle manufacturing right now. So maybe come July and August when things slow down a little bit, I'll get some time to do that. But yeah. So.
How many paddles a year or a month or a week, or how does it work? How many?
It's a great question. It's also a very hard question to answer because I make everything from little tiny mini paddles that are 24 to 29 inches long to, full size paddles. And I even make paddle blanks because I took over for Ray, and Ray was working a lot with these summer camps. And a lot of the summer camps have these paddle making programs or little award ceremonies or things like that. So I make a ton of product for them. So that's why I'm neck deep in paddles right now, is because I've got a lot of bulk orders. But to answer your question, paddle products, probably around 2,000 to 2,500, somewhere around there. Full size custom paddles, probably around 500, 800 a year, something like that. So,
so somebody calls you to make a paddle, and is it coming one that you've made? Do you make it when they order? Are they, I know you have like a back stock of all hand custom made ones already. How does it work?
I only stock product in Canada. So since moving my business to the States in 2019, I needed to find a way to balance that cross-border traffic because I'm doing a lot more sales now. Most of my sales were in Canada at the time. Now it's kind of a 50-50 split. So in the US, everything is built to order. And then if you want to order a custom paddle on my Canadian side of the business, that will ship directly from me in Flagstaff. And because we have a Canadian company and a US company, I do all the sales and duties and taxes and all that stuff cross-border between the companies. So when the customer gets the paddle on their end, they never see any surprise bills or anything funny like that if you're based in Canada. So
cool. And so one more thing about, I'm sure we'll talk more about it as well as we get into it, but about the specifics of the paddle. So sure. The modified race special, which I believe is the paddle that I have, or I know is one of the paddles I have. I got many of them from you because I outfit all the guided trips I do with them. But the one that I specifically use, it's something like a 50-50 ratio between the blade and the length. Is that right? The blade.
Yeah. Yep. The only thing I'll correct you on is it's nothing modified. It's a Ray special. So that would be the model name. Yeah. Then we have the next kind of shorter, for lack of a better term, stubbier blade would be the modified special. And then you want to go even stubbier, modified otter tail. And then we have your standard otter tail as well.
Right. So I use the Ray special.
The Ray special. And that 50-50 split with the perfect balanced blade to shaft ratio, not just from measurement, but from literal balance. It just makes effortless paddling. And this isn't me just boasting my product here. Like, you get it, Will, right? Like it's you.
I use it.
Yeah, you use it for sure.
How about paddling? How did what is it about canoeing specifically that has drew you into it? And how often do you get out on the water? Do you have any favorite trips?
Yeah, that's great. There's a few answers there. What I love about paddling mostly is what I would call Canadian style solo paddling. It's where you're kneeling in the tumble home of the canoe, the boat is keeled over on its side, and you're basically dragging your hand through the water. You're that close to the water. And I mean, I think just the sound of that alone is pretty pretty magical, right? So that is what gets me going for paddling for sure. There's something just absolutely magical about it, and just moving so slowly and almost in a dance flow to the water like that.
Yeah,
so that's my preferred paddling. But then there's also the tripping side and the white water, which is the adrenaline. But that's where my heart and soul is at for sure with paddling.
Totally,
but
man.
To answer your question on the trips, sorry. Some of my favorite trips were whitewater trips by far. I paddled the Noir River in Quebec twice. That's definitely a favorite for sure. I've also done the Spanish River in Ontario. That's a great, up to class 2, 3 whitewater. The Noir is great. It's up to class 3. I would say the Noir is probably my favorite trip so far. 10-day trip.
What is that like? Describe that river to me for Yeah.
Just like the aesthetic side of it, like
like how would you describe that river trip? You're pitching it to me like, hey, let's go to this river.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to start off, it's a little challenging to get upriver because typically you want to have your car parked at the bottom, right? So we did that, and I was running. This was when I was guiding canoe trips for 13 and 14-year-olds at the summer camp I worked at. And so you'd park at the bottom, and then you'd hire the shuttle company at the bottom there to take you up. And that was probably the hardest part. Everything else, very chill and easy trip. But once you get up there, it's half day drive, not even, and it's a winding, sandy banked river. It's brilliant. You kind of get a little lost in the winds, but luckily it's a river and there's no real break-offs or anything, so it's not hard to just stay on track. So it's a pretty chill trip for sure. And then as for the whitewater, I think I had mentioned this on your Instagram, but I was on these trips using Haps maps from Hap Wilson.
That's right.
Yeah, and he had these very detailed drawings of all the whitewater sets on this river, and it's so helpful, just so helpful. It made the unscoutable sections of this river like predictable at some point, So yeah, very, very nice. Highly recommend having those if you can get your hands on them.
Cool. It was interesting talking to him. And like it clicking with me a little bit when he was like, yeah, the reason that we did these maps wasn't because, just to help people. It was like, that was one of the reasons, but it was because, if you get more people to these rivers, they have a better chance of being protected. And it's like just one of the ways that he got people out there. I thought that was kind of neat.
I love it. Yeah. Definitely so helpful for sure. Another really neat thing, and take this however you wish, but for me, I thought it was pretty badass, for lack of a better term. But there is what they call, or at least I'm not sure if Hap called it that, but Portage of Death is what they called it. It's 1 kilometer long, and it goes around this really, really gnarly set of rapids, and you're basically got to go this gradual uphill the whole way, and then there's this extreme downhill climb, and they even have ropes tied to a tree so that you can drag your canoes down the roots instead of having to carry it on your shoulders down. That's how steep it was. So
at least they're thoughtful.
Sorry?
At least they're thoughtful.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, someone decided to put a rope there. It's great. Yeah. So yeah, it was very helpful for sure. But yeah, that last section is tough for sure.
Hey, it's Will here. I want to take a moment to let you know about our show sponsor and partner, Fishell Paddles, makers of fine, handcrafted wooden canoe paddles. I spent a lot of time paddling rivers and lakes, and Fishell paddles are the best canoe paddles that I've come across. I use the Ray Special model myself, and I outfit all the guided trips that I run with Fishell paddles too, because I think they're the best. Each paddle is handmade by Greg Fishell at his shop in Flagstaff, Arizona, from a single piece of wood. What I love most is the shape and feel of the paddle. Other than being beautiful and efficient, it puts less strain on your shoulders and arms than a typical paddle would, while actually giving you more control and finesse with each stroke. Plus, the shape of the blade just feels right cutting through the water. All paddles are customizable from the type of wood, whether that's cherry, ash, or maple, to laser engravings, and my favorite, which is the leather strap that Greg pins around the shaft so that it doesn't get beat up as you run along the gunnels, prying off or doing the J stroke in the back of the stern there. So go get yourself a Fishell paddle now and feel the difference. Use the code WILL at checkout. That's WILL to get a free wooden paddle hanger with any paddle purchase. That way you can show off and organize that new handmade paddle. Check them out at FishellPaddles.com. That's FISHELL paddles.com. Fishell Paddles, handcrafted wooden canoe paddles. One of the things that I've kind of gotten out of the mode of is portaging, and I can't say the portage.
Yeah, that's all right.
Not in my blood. But I like, I've done so many river trips and have just been so focused on rivers recently that and most of the stuff that I'm running is flat water, and I try to avoid dams. And so it's like most of the time I'm never really portaging anymore. And I went and did a Boundary Waters trip with a buddy. This was a few summers ago now. I did it 2 summers ago, or 2 summers in a row. And it was probably about 2 years ago now that I did it. And man, when I went, I had the first year I did it, totally forgot about the whole portaging realm of it, like the whole aspect of it. Like all my gear was loose. None of it was like, packed up together. I think we made like, who knows how many trips, probably like 5 or more trips. And like, loose coolers, odds and ends stuff.
Yep.
And then that second year, I got a little more dialed and gathering things and keeping them all together for one run. But man,
bringing it back to your summer camp days, eh?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Man, portage can be tough.
Yep. Yeah, no, it is for sure. Yeah, but yeah, at least for me, in my younger days, I only just turned 30, but my younger days, I loved it. I don't know. There was something about running back for a second canoe and just, really pushing it hard, and
No
the
doubt.
body can keep up with it. It's a good feeling.
Throwing the canoe over your head, it's always the best feeling, taking the canoe.
Oh yeah. Missed that for sure.
And the other thing that I remember talking about this, and I went to summer camp in northern Wisconsin and worked there, similar to you in Canada, but like the portaging of like just bogs, like cranberry bogs, but just bogs in general, and like the run-ups to some of these portages where you're just walking in and it's just like knee deep mud and just like nasty, but you just embrace it and fight through it, and by the end,
it's like you'll have a chance to rinse your feet off once you get paddling out on the lake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Portage days.
Yeah, that's good times. Yeah, I think you asked me a while back there if I still get out and paddle now, and if I have like how often I do.
Yeah.
I don't really. I don't. I wish I did. No, manufacturing canoe paddles takes up a lot of my time for sure. But I will say in the winter seasons, I do love to go skiing with my wife. She grew up ski racing, and I grew up skiing. Gosh, once a week, kind of family vacation kind of thing every year. Or sorry, 1 week every year. Yeah, so that's kind of what we do mostly now, but we still like to get out and paddle on our local lake here every once in a while. And but no real time for canoe trips because
you got to make time, man.
I know. I gotta find a way to do it in the fall. I gotta do it in the fall.
On a Buffalo Roamer trip, fall trips in October in Moab in Utah.
I would love that. Yes, I've done the Green River and I love it. Love it. Actually, I have quite a funny story about that. If you're up for it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So we were the only. My wife and I were the only canoers in the group of 14 people, or however many of us there were. It was a fairly large group. and everyone else we were going with was really like, they're all from the Southwest, so they're really into rafting. And so they all brought their rafts. And the Green River, for those who don't know, it's a very chill, flat water river, but it is moving and very fast, I would say. So, anyways, by day 3, everyone on the trip was looking at us going, "What? Like, these guys are already packed? Their canoes loaded? Like, there's no like fire line to get the kitchen and stuff like into their boat, or it's like we're just super light compared to what they were doing." And I just got a kick out of that. I was like, "Yeah, guys, come on, get with the program here. Come on." Open boat though, right?
Rafting versus canoeing, man.
Yeah.
And then you go canoeing to kayaking, and then kayaking to backpacking. It's true. It's a similar ball game, but a whole different ball game, man. When I was living in Montana, Colorado, and I did a float trip down the Grand Canyon, a rafting trip, and that opened my eyes to like the whole rafting world. Because I'd always been pretty dialed into the canoeing world, and
the canyon is huge. Like, those rapids are massive.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best trip I've ever done. It's just stunning, amazing. If you ever get the opportunity, absolutely have to. In fact, I still, I got an email today about openings, because I'm signed up for, cancellations and such. And,
nice.
but I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I got to figure out a way like just to be able to make this happen one time, But no, that trip is spectacular and amazing. But what I was saying about rafting versus canoeing is, the amount of stuff that rafters take, it is insane. It's like,
it is.
Just the sleeping pads, the Paco pads that they have. It's like a full queen sized, 2 or 3 inch piece of foam. You're like, holy cow. And the whole setup. It's
well, keep in mind, right? They're not portaging. So it's like, the wine as well. And they have the large raft space, and they're really good about tying everything down and whatnot, which is cool. So I got to ask, Will, did you do it as like a chartered trip, or did you do a private?
No, we did a private trip. It was one of my buddies from college who pulled the permit, and it was all a bunch of guides and like, outdoor kind of community folk. A couple of them had done the trip before. A handful of them of our oarmen had run the trip before. I was on the boat. I was on the poop boat, which is the Gruber boat.
The Gruber boat,
yes. And it sounds a lot worse than it is. It's it's where all of the ammo cans full of is stored. And surprisingly, somehow, I don't know how, it doesn't smell. Not too bad. And it was me and 2 gals. One of the oar ladies was rocking it, and I was on her boat. And it was just absolutely amazing. And it was such a different dynamic than the canoe trips, A, for all those reasons that we said about all the gear and everything, but B, all my canoe trips, the guided ones that I offer now are that I do for my business are 6 people. And most of the times, if I'm doing personal trips, it's like me and one other person, or like, a group of 2, like a group of 4. So 2 canoes or something like that. It's hard to find people to get out there.
Can be, for sure.
Or I'll go solo a lot too, like on the Mississippi and the Yukon. Those are both solo trips. But the difference of having a group of 16 people, and I think it was 16 or 18 people, and I always get the days mixed up, but I think it was 24 days through the Grand. And it was just amazing. There's pluses and minuses to the more people and less people, but at the end of the day, it's awesome to have a good group that jives together in a crazy place like that. It's just, it's tough to beat.
Absolutely. Did you guys flip at all on any of the rapids, or have anyone flip?
Trying to recall. So we had only one swimmer, I think. I don't think we had anybody flip. But
you just had someone fall out. Okay.
Yeah, we had one swimmer. Yeah. They were on a ducky. He was on a ducky. My buddy Alex, and I love him to death, but he's an idiot and just like a daredevil type guy.
Yeah,
and he is on the ducky. I'm trying to remember the name of the rapid. I think it's like
Lava?
Hance. No, it wasn't Lava.
Hermit?
I don't think it's Hermit. I forget the name of it. It's something along Hance or Lance or something. I forget the name of it, but it's a big hitter, and there's like two kind of rapids in the front, and then it gets washed up onto a wall on the right. And I remember everybody, we scouted it before, and it was like, all right, this is like a no swim zone because you get washed up against this wall on the right. And of course, my buddy Alex is doing it in a ducky, and I'm in the boat in front of him, and he's paddling and hits the first rapid, and like the tiny thing before even the meat of it, like the tiniest bit before the main rapid, and flips. And so he's like swimming through the heart of it. And I'm just watching him like, oh shit, like swimmer. And I hit him. I'm trying to even remember how exactly it went, but I threw the rope at him, and I think I missed him on the first one. And if I remember right, I think I pulled it in and then threw it again, or he swam down to it or something and hooked onto my rope, and then I pulled him in. And I remember I pulled him in, and I was like, the adrenaline running, like, thank God, you're alive, blah, blah, blah. And he just looks at me and he's like, that was fucking awesome. I was like, God damn it, Alex. Like,
right? Oh man, that's hysterical. Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh God, like just one of those guys,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I haven't actually done the canyon yet, and it's pretty sad to say that since I live so close. Like my wife has done it a few times, but she's done the chartered trips. So they have these huge, like I couldn't even tell you how long these rafts are, but they have a huge motor on the back. They take like 2 or 3 of them. One's like 2 of them with passengers, one of them's full with gear. But you can't flip these things. Like if you flip this, like it's like you did something really bad. Pretty wild.
It's crazy, and amazing place too. And when I was doing it, it happened to be like an experimental dam release. So they released a bunch of water from the dam, and the CFS were like absolutely insane. And so we the day that we knew the water was supposed to get to us, because so we put in, and then we had like 10 days or something before they were going to release all of this water from the dam. And so there was some sort of like equation to figure out how fast the water was moving, until how long it would get to us. And it was like a day later or something after they opened the dam. Wow. And so we had to determine basically like how high to camp overnight. And we were going to take a layover day, how high to go up in the canyon based off of how much water was going to be released on the dam and how high the river was going to rise. And so we are trying to, we like find a spot where we're going to stay, and we like hike all of our stuff like way up the side of the canyon. And
so you're off the sandy beach and you're up on the rock, right?
Yeah, like way up on the rock, man. And my buddy Alex, I remember, was sleeping in that same ducky that he swam in, and he was using it as like a bed, and he was perched on like a little rocky knoll, and the water didn't come that night, but it ended up coming like the next morning. Throughout the day, it was like slowly rising, and we're watching it. And as we're watching it, like keeps getting higher keeps getting higher, higher. And the river is like pulsing. It's like all of
my
the
gosh.
undercuts from the Grand Canyon, all of the undercuts
Uh-huh.
have like trapped air as that water is rising. It's like burping. It's insane.
Whoa.
And so we're hiked up, and at this point where Alex had slept the night before was underwater. And so we're like way high up on the side of the canyon, but in like a little bowl, but super high up and in like a little bowl. And so there was one spot, like the low point, the saddle or the crest of the of this kind of bowl that we were standing at and watching, and half of the group was like freaking out, me included, that if the water gets over this low point, our whole camp's going to wash out and we're all screwed. And the other half was like, no, it's going to be fine. It's not going to reach this crest. And mind you, it was like, I don't know how high it was, but it was really high from where we slept. And so, yeah, it was like a paranoid scramble of like watching the water rise in the Grand Canyon, wondering if we're going to be washed out or not.
Oh my gosh.
Insane.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah, dams, they can be unpredictable sometimes. And you even knew it was coming too, and it was unpredictable. That's crazy.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. But yeah, amazing whitewater in the Grand Canyon. Yeah, so you're in Flagstaff. You're right there.
Yeah, literally right there. Yeah, this is kind of that home base for a lot of people traveling in for getting on the canyon. So, yeah, it's a good spot to be for sure.
So is that where you ski too?
In Flagstaff? Yeah. I mean, that's just like my home ski area is the Arizona Snow Bowl. But a lot of the time, my wife and I travel. Like we were up in Banff this year, skiing over there. We actually hit 14 different ski areas this year, which was pretty wild. Yeah. We got the Icon Pass, so we're like, well, you might as well jump around and hit all the areas that are free. Well, not free, but you know what I mean. Yeah. On the pass. So
that you paid for.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
what were some of your favorites from this winter?
Oh, definitely Banff for sure. Like Lake Louise. Oh, that is gorgeous.
The photos are amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes you see those gorgeous photos of like in the summertime, like canoeists. Usually some very nice looking young lady holding a paddle, from shot from the back. Yes, yeah, exactly. And beautiful mountains in the background, gorgeous blue lake. That's literal Lake Louise up there, and then the ski area is just across the way. So yeah, that was definitely a high for sure. Kind of a rough early snow year. There's a lot of snow kind of later in the year, like I would say like February. So we went up there in January. So
that's the thing with ski trips is that it's really it can be so hit or miss depending on snow conditions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're taking a gamble for sure. Yeah, but we enjoyed ourselves no matter what. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Had some POW days, so yeah, it was good.
What else?
You ski, Will?
I do. Yeah, I snowboard.
Snowboard, sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man, I rip it. I absolutely love it, and I like steep, deep, and tight trees.
Nice. Yeah. I think every snowboarder does, right?
Yeah. What type of terrain do you like, or what's your perfect day on the mountain?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm a tele skier. I gotta start with that for sure. I definitely love a deep powder day. It doesn't even have to be that deep for me to really enjoy it because I'm dropping knees every turn. Like I just feel like I'm already waist deep. If that makes sense. Yeah. No. So a day like that is great. I really enjoy moguls. There's the technicality of it, especially on telemark skis, is so fun. So, and it's very tiring. So, yeah, that would be a perfect day.
Okay, bro, you drop your knee.
I know. Just a tele skier, don't mind me. Free the heel, man.
So where else? 14 mountains. Where else? Banff was number one.
Yeah. So well, there's 3 in Banff actually. So we did. Yeah, I a lot of people don't. So there's Sunrise, Lake Louise, and Norquay. So we hit all those. We did Big Sky on the way up. Bridger on the way up. Those are both in Montana. We did Utah on the way down. So we drove, yeah, if I'm not making that clear. Utah on the way down, we did Deer Valley.
Explore the beautiful and rugged Wyoming backcountry with Soda Peak Outfitters in Moran, Wyoming, just down the road from world-famous Jackson Hole. SodaPeakOutfitters.com is the team to talk to get off the beaten path and into an unforgettable wilderness experience. Nestled in the heart of the greater Yellowstone area, Soda Peak calls Bridger Teton National Forest and the Teton Wilderness home. They specialize in guided and DIY fishing and pack trips into some of the most pristine and remote wilderness and water that the lower 48 has to offer. Pack trips by horse, mule, or llama make getting deep into the rugged backcountry doable and makes it a Western adventure in itself. I know one of the trips that I'd love to do is their thoroughfare fishing trip, where with a horse pack team, they take you into the headwaters of the famed Yellowstone River to fish and explore over 5 days. Untouched water, rising trout on a summer morning. Yeah, that sounds right up my alley. They also offer a single-day guided fishing trips as well as trail rides and more. Their pack trips are a great way to disconnect with civilization and reconnect with nature and the mountains. Charles is one of the owners there and the guy to talk to. He can help you tailor a custom trip or get you signed up for any of their classic adventures. Check them out at SodaPeakOutfitters.com. That's soda like the drink, peakoutfitters.com, or give Charles an email at charles@SodaPeakOutfitters.com and use code BR2024 at checkout for 5% off any trip you take with Soda Peak. That's BR as in Buffalo Roamer 2024. Experience true Wyoming wilderness with Soda Peak Outfitters. Hey, it's Will here. Want to take a moment to let you know about today's sponsor, SREgear.com. SRE Gear is a family-owned and operated outdoor gear shop in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, and they have everything you need for your next adventure. Whether you're camping, backpacking, hiking, paddling, or just getting out there and exploring, SREgear.com has the gear you need to get you to those places you love. I recently picked up a new Garmin InReach from SRE. I needed a new communication device for the guided canoe trips I've been leading, and after talking through a few options with the owner, Nick, there, he helped me sort out what I needed and get squared away. And that's one of the things that sets SREgear.com apart is the unbeatable customer service. Call or email with any questions, and you'll talk with the owner, Nick, or someone there close to him. So before you go and buy any outdoor equipment from a big box store, be sure to check out family-owned and operated SREgear.com. And be sure to use the discount code WILL at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. That's discount code WILL at checkout for 10% off. SREgear.com. Great gear, great prices, unbeatable customer service. Cool. I've done Big Sky, skied Big Sky a few times. I lived in Montana for just 2 years,
Nice.
but skied Big Sky a few times. Awesome mountain, big mountain. I haven't done Bridger though. Of course, Bridger was like the classic towny spot that
Yes,
people
yeah.
love. What'd you
A
think
much
about
more local ski area. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a bad snow year, so it was. I'm just looking at the mountain. I'm looking at rock almost everywhere. We were literally dodging rocks, even on the groomers, which was wild. But other than that, I could literally look at the mountain and go, "Look at all that advanced terrain! Like it's just incredible stuff." So, yeah, I could see Bridger being a lot of fun with a lot of snow coverage for sure.
Nice. And
Yeah.
Deer Valley in Utah.
Yeah, and we've done a bit in Utah before too. So yeah, Deer Valley was pretty sweet. No snowboarders, so that's nice, eh?
Jeez, you snobs.
Yeah,
I did 2 winters ago. We did a trip to Salt Lake, and we did Powder Mountain, which I was pleasantly surprised with. That was one of my favorites.
sweet. I've not been there yet.
Yeah. Powder Mountain, Snowbird, and Brighton, which Brighton was the snowboard mountain. So you can go, kick rocks. Brighton snowboard.
There you go. Oh, that's funny. Oh man, that's awesome, man. That's sweet. Yeah, love skiing for sure.
So
Good time.
did the trip end in Utah then? This last winter? I mean, 14 mountains. That's still got.
Yeah, I'm missing. I'm just blanking here on names of mountains.
Do you have
at this
an
point.
Do you have an all-time favorite ski
But
resort?
that wasn't just on the one trip. That was just over the course of the season. So
Okay.
so you could include like my home mountain, for example. We did Aspen at one point. Um, Technically, we did two different areas at Aspen because they have four mountains right there. Sorry, what was your question?
Do you have a favorite resort, favorite mountain to ski?
I do. For a long time, it was Mammoth out in California.
Haven't been there.
Yeah, I do recommend for sure. Great mountain. I would say now Lake Louise is up there, and Telluride definitely has a home for sure at the very top. I think right now, I still think Telluride's the number one. Yeah, it's
For
just
Telluride, it's just stunningly beautiful. I haven't been.
yeah, yeah. It's nice for sure. Yeah, yeah. My sister in law lives in Durango, so she's fairly close over there, and yeah. Anyways, it's a good time.
Yeah,
Good hike to terrain. Good hike to terrain if you're into that. So
sweet. And you do some climbing too, some climbing and slacklining, right?
yeah, well, that's kind of how I ended up in Arizona was due to that as well as my wife, of course. So I was going to school out here originally for university because I went to high school in Southern California. So that's how I kind of ended up in Flagstaff. It's only a 7-hour drive from SoCal. Perfect distance away from your parents, right? And yeah, so climbing, I just kind of I fell in love with slacklining first, and then found climbing kind of after. And slacklining, I just thought was just so unique. This would have been 2013, 2012, somewhere around there. And it was still, I don't know if you've ever seen many pictures of slackliners and highliners, but this was back in the day where slacklines were really, really tight, and they were kind of like a really stretched out rubber band. Now
They're different now?
they're a little different now. If you look it up now, everyone is walking loose, saggy lines.
That
So
sounds more pleasurable.
it is, funny enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the rebound effect. So every time
Right.
you shake the line, it just dissipates because of how loose the line is. You still have tension on it. And I got into highlining shortly after into my slacklining side of things. And that's when I really fell in love with slacklining. And then obviously
So
climbing after that.
for a dummy like me, obviously I can infer, but highlining, you just put it somewhere high and you have a harness on, and your harness is
Yep.
attached to the line itself.
Exactly. So if you fall 4 feet below the line, or you try and catch the line. So this way you're not, trying to hang on the rope. But either way, it doesn't really matter. A lot of people like both. So yeah, I was a catcher personally. That's what I preferred. So never liked that free fall feeling.
I can see why.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So no, I slacklining was huge for me. Like even to the point where like it was a big part of my life. I even have the tattoo "Slack Life" on my arm. Funny enough. So yeah, definitely a big part for sure.
Cool.
But at one point in time, I had the longest highline record in Arizona, which was
Wow.
like 148 meters long. So that got beat pretty quickly after, but
Where was that?
that was at this place called Edge of the World or End of the World, and it is about 45-minute drive on a dirt road south of Flagstaff, and it looks over all of Sedona, Arizona, and it is
Damn, that sounds
gorgeous
awesome.
out there. Gorgeous out there, yeah, yeah.
How high was it?
What
qualifies as a high line?
That's a very big argument in the slackline community. Because there's this kind of like high line, then you can get into a midline, and then you've got your normal slack line. And my whole rule of thumb was like, if you took what they called a backup ride, so your main line failed in a high line, would you hit the ground? That would be the question of a midline or not. Because that's like, well, you're not really protected then, right? It's kind of like but at the same time, there was points where we were walking little 40-foot midlines that were 100 feet in the air. So it's like, is that a high line or is it a midline? We always used to call it a midline. So it's up for debate.
So explain that part again. 100 feet in the air.
Yeah, 100 feet in the air, but it's only 40 feet long.
Okay.
So even if you took a backup ride, you wouldn't really hit the ground. Like you'd be fine, if that makes sense.
I don't know.
Because the backup line is not as tight as the main line. So
Oh,
you're going to
there's that
fall
whole other
further no
line.
matter what. Sorry, I left that key detail
Okay.
out. Sorry. Yeah, so you would fall further than you normally would. So the question is would you hit the ground kind of thing? But yeah,
It's all
gosh,
semantics.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like this line out at the edge of the world, like it's 148 meters long. And that's, oh gosh, what does that convert to feet? 450 feet roughly.
Long ways.
So it's like, well, it wasn't 450 feet tall. So,
Right. Right.
but they very quickly after that got in, like the community got into segmented highlines. So they have this like kind of interwoven system. So you have this like multiple main lines connected at certain points where the backup's also connected to the main. And so if you ever had a mainline failure, it would only be on a section of it. And then you'd only fall for that section of distance, if that makes sense.
I
You
see.
wouldn't fall
Yeah.
the full 450 feet of loose backup line. So.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So if I never considered that would be an option to, is that if your actual line fails, I just figured if you were harnessed to your line, you consider your line pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, there was that argument always is like, well, why do we need a backup line? Like we really, really need it in highlining, and because like climbers only use one line a lot of the time, and the argument there was that the climber uses it as the backup line. They don't use it as the main line. For us, we're literally walking on that thing as our main line, so it's our
Right.
main life source. So while the rock climbers are using the wall itself, they're trying to hold onto the wall and only fall
Right.
if they absolutely need to.
Sure.
So.
And so obviously then the backup line has to be anchored to something other than what your main line is anchored to, right?
Yep. Or alternatively, you can get into things like bolted high lines, where there's 4 bolts or 3 bolts in a system, and everything's backed up in its own way. Where if 1 bolt fails, well, you've got 3 more to catch you. All that kind of stuff.
Right.
So everything's backed up in every form. Yeah.
Man, that sounds pretty wild being out. But I suppose it's like anything, probably to the slackliner, it probably doesn't matter how high or where it is really, because all you can focus on is, the next step or whatever you're focusing on to get by. Right.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. One of the hardest places for me to highline was Moab, Utah. There's a place called the Fruit Bowl out there where they hold a festival on over Thanksgiving every year. And I used to be very involved with that many years ago before I more or less retired from highlining. And that is like a 600 to 800 foot tall, like just sheer wall canyons. It's huge out there. And the biggest line is over a kilometer long out there now. So, these guys are walking for 3 or 4 plus hours consecutively. Oh yeah. The world record is probably 2.5 kilometers now at this point. It's over 2 for sure. Yeah. It takes them hours to cross it. It's crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy.
And there's guys who are sending it. So meaning like they're not falling once. Their arms are in the air the whole time. They're standing the whole time for that whole period of that walk. It's absolutely insane.
Sounds insane just to get a line taut enough to walk on it for that far.
It is. Yeah. What's funny, like, that's just manpower, right? That's fairly easy to organize and get together. The hardest part is finding an area that will support that, right? Because it's like, Moab's great because you have these huge, tall canyons, but I think the world record, I think it was set in Canada. I think it was up in Quebec. I'll have to check on that. But anyways.
And you've retired your highlining career?
Yeah, I mean, if I come across one, I'll get on it, or especially if I know who rigged it, or if I have the ability to go check the rigging myself, because that's always a big concern. You never know who's putting this gear together, who's clipping carabiners and all that kind of stuff, tightening the shackles. So, but yeah, no, I've more or less retired from highlining. I got really, really into trad climbing shortly after retiring from slacklining, and then I also kind of teetered off that a bit. And now, with a baby on the way, I am hardcore focusing on work and just trying to really, really, keep making those paddles, get the marketing out there. And right now I'm neck deep in manufacturing. So very thankful for it. That's for sure.
That's great, man. So it sounds like what you're saying is you need to make a little bit of time for canoeing.
Yes. Yes, I do. Very much so. Yep. Yep. I also live in a desert, which makes it a little challenging.
That's true. That's true. But hey, there's
Yeah.
rivers. There's rivers to be had.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I have dreams. I want to get on the San Juan. I think that'd be
Absolutely. That's a spectacular one. Yeah. One of the best in the country
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to do the section near Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Yeah. There's some good whitewater through that city right there. It's pretty awesome. So soon enough, I've got the boat to do it. I've got plenty of paddles.
Plenty of paddles. I would have to assume.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, Greg, man, I'm going to wind her down here. What should somebody know if they want to get a paddle from you?
Just honestly, give me a call. My phone number is on my website, fishellpaddles.com, or for my U.S. customers, us.fishellpaddles.com. They'll also automatically link to each other depending on where you're located. But yeah, my number's on the website. Give me a call, shoot me a text, and I will respond within 2 hours typically, especially during busy season. So happy to help out, size a paddle for you, help you get the right one for you. Give me as much background information as you can on your paddling and what you do and, all that. And then I can definitely get you sized up.
Yeah, I know that's what I did. I just literally I just called you and was like, hey, I like the paddles you have. This is what I'm looking for. What are your options? And we just worked it down the line.
There it is. That easy.
Absolutely. That's great, man. What else? Is there anything we didn't hit? Anything you want to get out there?
No, I mean, just other than check out the social platforms I'm on and, trying to really grow my YouTube channel right now on information for carrying and maintenance and all that of your paddles. And there's plenty of videos on there right now that talk about even choosing your own paddle. So even if you don't want to call me, there's videos out there to help you choose.
Great.
So,
yeah. And I know, two things. One, if you are going to give Greg a call, make sure you tell him that you listen to the podcast and you get a free paddle hanger with the code WILL. Or if you just tell him, I'm sure you'll hook him up with just a free paddle hanger to hang that beautiful paddle on the wall. Those things are pretty neat, I think.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a work of art, right? So it's, you might as well put it in and that's all part of care and maintenance as well, is you shouldn't be leaning it up in your garage in the corner, right, where it's just getting dusty. Put it in your house, hang it on the wall. Sorry, Will. I actually probably should have told you this, Will, beforehand, but we're planning on changing that code over so that these guys can get 15% off now.
Okay, great. Boom, bada bing, bada boom.
Yep, I'll make sure that is changed right now, and we'll make that happen. So it's a better deal for everyone.
Perfect.
And there it is.
Awesome. So there you go, 15% off. Yeah, and I know your shop is awesome. I know I met a guy at Canoecopia this year. So last year at 2 years ago, I guess now at Canoecopia is when we met in person. After I bought my paddle, you were there and we chatted it up and decided to do a little partnership here with the podcast. And then this year I was back and speaking, and a guy came up and said that he had heard me speaking last year and then was a listener to the podcast and came and visited you in your shop one time. So you even accept visitors, huh?
I do. Absolutely. Yeah, please. Yeah. If you find yourself in Flagstaff, give me a call. I would love to have a visitor. When I was based in Ontario, I had them all the time because that is literally paddling country up there. Now that's probably the only paddling visitor I've had in the shop in the last 5 years, which is kind of sad. So if you find yourself doing the Route 66 road trip like that gentleman was, stop in, say hi. I'll show you the shop, see the machinery, all that kind of stuff. See where the magic happens. Man.
All right, Greg. Thanks, man. Thanks for chatting. And thanks for supporting Buffalo Rummer Podcast. And take it easy and we'll be in touch. And I'm looking forward to getting my paddle back and getting her in the water again this year.
Yeah, you're welcome, Will. Thank you for everything you do and everything you've done for my business. It means a lot, man.
And there you have it, episode 93 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors with Greg Fishell. Don't forget, you can use the discount code WILL at FishellPaddles.com if you fancy getting your hands on one of them fine handcrafted wooden canoe paddles that Greg makes. I know I like mine. Also, big thank you to SREgear.com and to SodaPeakOutfitters.com for supporting this podcast. Don't forget to check out BuffaloRoamer.com for more details about me and river trips we have coming up in 2025 and in the end of 2024 here. Would love to get out on the river and have an adventure with you. And if nothing else, get outside, get some fresh air. We'll catch you downriver.